Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast. I've got two guests here that are doing something really unique in terms of finding properties, and I think this would be hugely valuable. I do want to be transparent. They do run a service for this, but it does give you an insight as to what they're doing and how they're doing it, and I would assume, give you a competitive edge if you decide to work with them. But yeah, pen and paper out, because we don't just talk about what they're doing in terms of service. They talk about their strategy, their marketing method, and a lot of different stuff in terms of their follow-up strategy. So there's tons here. It's just a full-on strategy and what do they do with their land business. Two incredible guys, Aaron and Chris. I hope you guys enjoy this episode here with them. Cheers. All right, I've got two special guests here with me today. They're both running a platform. We're going to talk a little bit about it. Aaron, Chris, how are you both doing?
Hey, Jesse. Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing well, Jesse. Thanks for having us.
It's always like weird when you've got like three people. It's like, okay, am I going to let him talk first? I'm going to talk first. And it's like, you got to kind of wait. And I know what that's like, because I sometimes have to do that with Kevin, my co-founder here. And so I understand. So I'll let you guys feel it out as who wants to talk when I ask these questions. And sometimes I'll address it to both of you guys. But anyways, welcome to the show. It's great to have you guys on. But before we get into some of the strategy stuff, by the way, if you guys are listening, yes, we're going to be talking about some strategies here, specifically for land flippers, obviously, or land investors. But I'd love to hear each one of you guys. Maybe I'll name it out first. Aaron, why don't you start first, because your name starts alphabetically in order here. Aaron, how did you get started in land? How did you come across it? And then Chris, I'd like you to do the same thing afterwards.
Well, Chris and I, we got into it 3 years ago in 2022. So we're business partners in our land business and this new venture. So it's just another venture that we started together. Chris and I were both working for a medical device company where we're on call, working nights, weekends for 15 plus years each. So, it was a blessing. We, did well, but when you can't spend your time the way you want to spend your time, it's kind of like, is this really worth it? So we were kicking around ideas of, hey, what can we start on the side? And I get a call one day from Chris. He's like, hey, what do you know about flipping land? And I thought he was joking. I'm like, what do you mean? What's flipping land? And he's like, hey, I just ran into another rep in the lounge, and he said he made 50 grand in 6 months. And I'm like, okay, you have my attention. So he told him he joined a coaching program, the Land Profit Generator coaching program. So we got on a live webinar, and we joined that coaching program in 2022 and haven't looked back. It's been awesome. Like, we just love land. I mean, in 2022, we ended up, we started mid-year. We ended up netting about $100,000 that year. So, I mean, we were totally new to the business. So we thought that was a pretty good proof of concept. Like, this works, And then the next 2 years, we've averaged around $500,000 a year in net profit. So, we're very fortunate, and, it's just been a blessing, truly.
That's and thanks for being so open to sharing numbers. Okay, and I'll be quiet here. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, Aaron covered it all. I would just say, I have a wife and a son, and it just got to the point with our old job in medical device sales where, I was tired of going on a date night with my wife and taking 2 cars, or trying to coach my son's basketball team and not making every other weekend's, game or practice because I just got called to the operating room because we were on call. So super grateful and blessed to run into a buddy of mine, old colleague of mine, and get into the land industry, and have never looked back. It's been awesome. So we do it full time now.
But were you guys doing the medical device at the same time with land for a while? And how long was that? Like, there's going to be a lot of people who are listening here are also like, okay, yeah, I'm trying to prove the concept here. What and they've got a W-2, they've got another job, a full-time job. Some, we've got a lot of non-Americans listening too as well. Like, what did that look like? Did you come up with an exit strategy? Did you have a timeline? When did you say like, okay, it's time to move? What can you offer in terms of like light at the end of the tunnel for those people that are working in a full-time job right now and want to make that transition? Because it's certainly contextual for everybody, but help us understand from your guys' perspective.
I think there's two ways to go about it. The way I did it, I'm single, no kids, so I was able to burn the boats. Like in 2022, I just quit it and I just went all in while Chris was still working the med device job. So we were able to partner and do that and still, work 50-50 together. But, that's the method I went, and Chris kind of, stayed on for a little bit longer before he left.
Yeah, I stayed for about a year. So we started February 2022. I stayed for about a year in my med device career. Once we just kind of saw proof in the pudding, once we hit six figures or so in profit that year, we said, okay, like we've stayed consistent. We've done everything we were taught in the coaching program. We've taken all the steps. We've seen that it actually works. I couldn't devote my full time to it because our other job, I mean, we worked 70 hours a week pretty routinely. And so I was doing like calls and talking to sellers like in the middle of the operating room, like sneaking away. And I just kind of said, you know what, I trust that, we've shown that this business works. We're going to go all in. I left my career, February of 2023, and we're able to hire VAs and start scaling and really growing the business.
What was like, where was the line in the sand there? Did you say six figures, or was it a timeline thing?
Yeah, I think for me it was once we saw we could hit six figures in profit. That was kind of the light bulb. I was a little bit, we were fortunate in our other job, and my wife does work as well, but she was like, I just want you home. I want you home, and my son wanted me home, and so, you know, would I have stayed maybe a little bit longer, possibly? But I just wanted my life back, and I hadn't really had it since like college. So, but to answer your question, yeah, once we hit that six-figure profit margin was when we said, okay.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I can really relate. I have a son. I've got a wife as well, and I know where you're coming from with that. So I'm glad to hear that. A little bit of fuzziness from there. Thank you very much, Chris. Now, I don't typically do this. You guys were open to sharing your coaching program, which was LPG, and I don't really talk much ever about any coaching program unless that somebody is from that coaching program. They're on the podcast here. LPG is what you went through, and many have gone through in the past. If there's somebody in that program right now, what would you say are a couple of great things to make sure you take out of in that program?
Just as make friends with as many people as you can. I mean, those man, it's just having those resources. Like if I have a question on something, like I'm one call away from knowing the answer because of LPG. If I need a note buyer, I'm intertwined in that LPG system where I can find a note buyer. It's just the network is just it's just invaluable, really.
LPG. What's great with what Jack and it has built there is a very consistent process, and it's it's one thing that I see with a lot of people from the LPG program is it's a very formulaic system. I don't know to like I'm not a person. I'm not affiliated with Jack, but I just want to say I do notice there's a lot of consistency with the way you guys run things. And if there are other LPG listeners here, if you ever wanted to understand, I'm going to sort of shamelessly plug this in, but we have a course called pebblewithlpg.com. And that's like if you wanted to learn how to use Pebble with the LPG methodology. What's great, again, it's like it's so standardized. I know it just from speaking to so many people in the LPG uh, community and education platform. If you ever wanted to check it out, it's on Teachable, and you can certainly learn how to run your land business with Pebble. So again, that's Pebble with LPG. LPG with Pebble? I forget. Want to try the? I'll drop in the show notes there. But anyways, okay. Enough about that. Thank you for sharing a little bit about that. Okay, help us understand. You guys, I feel like approach land on the market. I'm just going to jump right into it. You guys approach land a little bit differently with your marketing. And that's sort of like what I want to make sure the meat and potatoes of this episode is. Help us understand at a very high level. First of all, what do you guys do? How do you guys find properties?
Yeah, so I would say what has really we've built our business on three things, right? We number one, consistency. So we for our business we do 80% neutral letter mailers, the gold standard, if you will, and then 20% text messaging. But we find most of our deals do come from neutral letters. Consistency meaning mailing every single week, right? Or every other week, or some type of a system where you consistently sending that mail as opposed to waiting for a deal to close 2 to 3 months and then revisiting that. So number one, consistency. The second is follow up. So Aaron and I talk to every single seller that lead that calls from our neutral letters. We follow up with them probably 5 times after that initial phone call to make sure we've crossed every T, dotted every I to make sure if there is a deal to be had that we're going to do everything in our power to get that deal and to get it under a sale agreement that's beneficial for both parties. So follow up is our second, and then third is probably our secret sauce. We learned early on that there's this seller that knows what their property is worth, wants market value for their property, and then there's sellers that live out of state or inherited the property or have back taxes on the property. They've never been to the property, right? We've all heard them. Whatever the situation may be. So with that particular seller, early on, we started asking, what are you looking for this piece of land? And a lot of times we kept hearing a common theme, and that was, well, the county assessed value is $20,000. I get my tax statement once a year, and the assessed value is $20,000. So we said, okay. So we started trying to find areas that had a margin between assessed to market value, where that $20,000 property assessed value is actually like $35,000 market value or $40,000. And by doing that, we were able to anchor the conversation with that seller of, well, the assessed value is 20,000. So we're going to send you an offer around that assessed value number. And so we kind of built our land business on that strategy, on more or less making offers near the county assessed value, knowing when we flip the property that the market value, there's margin there.
I love that. Now, I want to talk about that secret sauce side because I think there's some really lovely things about it. One, it's almost predictable in a way, but let's talk about the three things. You talk about your neutral letters. You send out neutral letters. What is that like? Do you do anything unique in your neutral letters? To help to break that down. What does that look like?
Yeah, so we send a neutral letter that's very personable. It has our company logo. It has a picture of Aaron and I on a piece of land. It's color. It's vibrant, if you will. We try to make it really, really personal. And then when we send them in a large envelope. We use a 6x9 envelope, so it stands out as opposed to your standard, windowed envelope. So we use a 6x9 envelope with handwritten font. Excuse me. We use a live stamp every single time. We don't do windowed envelopes. We feel like we have a pretty decent open rate with our neutral letter, and our letter, we feel like, stands out more. We have a QR code that'll lead to our website. On our website, our buying website, we have a video of me kind of breaking down what we do and trying to make it more personal, engaging as well.
I love that. I love all those things. Yeah, I definitely like doing things to really stand out matters. One of the things that we love here is like printing the map of the property. That typically gets a lot of eyes. If you try, and some of you guys that are inside of Pebble, if you didn't know, we can print the map of the property on even like we have this full window thing where like so they see it right on the envelope of their property satellite image. Yeah, doing things to really personalize and uniquenize it. Like you're doing with your site and having a video on there. I think that's super powerful what you guys are doing. Um, on the neutral letter, how are they going to contact you? By email, phone? What does that look like?
We have a 24-hour voicemail that we say in the letter, hey, leave a 24-hour voicemail. Early on, we hired, one of those companies to answer it for us, and they did a nice job, but you pay by the minute. And then sometimes you get a seller that is really chatty, and all of a sudden, our first bill was like hundreds of dollars, and there was no profit from it. It's like, what are we doing here? There's got to be a better way.
Yeah. So I guess it's a voicemail. It is then.
Yeah.
That, and I'll add to that, like we found even when we were using an answering service that we were calling every single seller back anyway. And so sometimes they were like, well, I just gave all this information to the lady I spoke to yesterday or 2 days ago. So we just said, you know what? We'll leave a phone number that a seller can call. They can leave all their information, and then we call them back within typically 24 hours and have that personal conversation with them.
Sure. Okay. Let's sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so many times, we're talking to sellers and they're like, hey, I got 20 letters on the table, but you're the first person I've spoken to on the phone. Right. So we hear that over and over, and that goes to Chris's point on follow up. Like we make it a point to try to speak to everybody on the phone. And I think it shows, and it just trying to build rapport and differentiate yourself from the competition.
It's so funny. It's like it's not a hard thing to do. And I always hear the same thing. I think a lot of people just avoid wanting to talk on the phone. Maybe it's because we live in the day and age of texting and messaging. I'm one of those people like I'd rather just call up a friend. I'm getting ready to put down some money on a dumb phone, which has very basic texting functionality on there and no more apps on there. And I just like to talk to people on the phone. I'd rather do that. So that's interesting. That's interesting. You say that. So you talk about 5-time follow up. What does that schedule actually look like then?
Yeah, so we'll typically call a seller back within 24, maybe 48 hours max. Once we do that, all of our offers will go out to all of those leads, all of those sellers on Friday. We'll send a text message to them on Friday. That day it goes out, and we'll say, hey, your offer is in the mail, like we spoke about a couple days ago. So that's one. The following Friday, hey, we just wanted to make sure you received our offer, whether via email or mail. The following Friday, hey, just so you know, our offer expires tomorrow. We have like a 15-day expiration on the signing of the offer. Did you receive it? Do you have any questions? Do you want to counter offer with us? And then the text message on the following Friday, the fourth one, will say, hey, I'm sorry we never heard from you. We'd love to re-engage, have another conversation about that property. So it's a text message every Friday following up on that first call.
That's really interesting. I have a bone to pick with you guys here. Why are you sending out your offers on Fridays? Why not just send it out immediately?
Because that's a great question. I have a VA that more or less does all of the follow-up via text message, and it's just easier for it to happen on the same day. And we try to be really consistent in our business. Like, we send all of our mailers on Monday. We send our offers on Fridays. We do our follow-ups we do our price reductions on the sell side on Thursdays. We just try to make it really streamlined.
Would it be inconsistent for you guys to say send it in the next, like always in 24 hours? Or is it basically like the manpower, you just don't have somebody there to send it in the next 24 hours?
Yeah, it's a great question. We totally could, I guess. We have the manpower to do it. We absolutely, like if I talk to somebody on Monday, I could definitely send them the offer on Tuesday or Wednesday for sure.
Yeah. I only bring this up because typically when I talk to LPG people in that community, it tends to be that that's the case. Like it's always timed on a specific date, and it's like, well, you like, what if this was on a Monday? You're gonna wait until Friday to send that out. I mean, we should be getting these out in 24 hours or ASAP type of thing, and I always found that really interesting. Now it could be tied to the platform that LPG is mostly used to, which is like Investment Dominator. That sort of system sort of gets them to send it out because they can batch and send it out. But yeah, I for you guys that are listening that again are on LPG, I would look into getting that out as soon as possible. And so I'm not trying to actually pick a bone here. I just wanted to. It's one of those things that we just notice very, very consistently about LPG. So if you're inside, again, in Pebble, it's quite easy to get that out in 24 hours and get that out there. So yeah, I encourage you guys to check that out. But
I definitely will. And can I do a quick plug as well? Aaron and I, for our business, are Pebble users, guys.
Yeah.
We absolutely love Pebble. Pebble is amazing. And although we went through one coaching program and we're very grateful for that, we are Pebble users, tried and true, and have been for a couple of years now. So.
I appreciate that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that. But again, it's just something I always notice. We've talked about it internally, like, it is sort of like that methodology. Again, like Jack does a really good job, like systemizing everything. It's crazy. It's almost like to the T. So I commend him very much for that. Anyways, okay, let's talk about the secret sauce side of things. This stuff I thought was really cool, the way you guys approach it. You mentioned that you're looking at areas where there's sort of a significant gap between the assessed value of the properties and the actual market value. And I know you like we're going to talk about what you guys have built to make this a lot easier too. But how did you first start doing this? How did you start doing this?
It was mostly just kind of stumbling upon this. So, and when I say stumbling upon, I mean when we were talking to sellers initially, and they were saying, "Well, I know what the county assessed value is." It just kind of a light bulb went off, and so we just stumbled upon counties and zip codes that had this margin, if you will, and we just kind of just started attacking those areas, those counties and zip codes that, we would see a zip code that, we talked to a seller from a lead that we got, and, all the assessed values in that area or that subdivision were, 20,000. And we're realizing, wow, these properties are selling for 35,000. So let's just hit that zip code again or hit that subdivision again. And initially it was very much just stumbling upon it in the early days.
Wow. So you were literally going through zip codes and comparing, I guess, comps to assessed values.
And Chris's middle name is Spreadsheet. You forgot to mention that. Excel in particular. So, I mean, just going and doing Excel spreadsheets on hours on end, of, seeing also how many are sold, how many are for sale. I mean, it just takes so much time. And then how long is your data good for? After 6 months, it's almost stale.
Yeah.
So it's like, then you got to do it again. And we just knew there had to be a better way to take care of this.
I mean, did you notice, like, is there like a concrete number in terms of like, okay, we get X amount more leads because of this strategy versus, not doing the strategy, I guess?
Yeah, I would say the concrete number I can give you is it's more on the acquisition side, right? If you send out 10 offers and all 10 of those sellers know what the market value is, want market value, I mean, you're probably not going to get any deals, right? But in terms of concrete numbers, when we have that initial relationship conversation with the seller, if it at some point dives into price and we'll use the assessed value as kind of like a precursor to anchor the price in the conversation. So when the offer arrives to them, they have a little bit of an understanding of, okay, this $20,000 assessed value lot, Chris is offering me 21,000 and change. makes sense. So for concrete numbers, we acquire 2 out of every 10 offers that we send. We get under contract 2 out of every 10 offers that we send out. And that's been pretty consistent for probably the past 2 years.
Wow, so a 20%. Okay. That's pretty awesome. Um, are there any sort of common patterns that you see now when dealing with people where you've offered them the assessed value, um, versus people who want market value, other than being obviously more open to it? But are there any common patterns or anything that you're seeing with the kind of people now that you guys are dealing with?
No, I think, like Chris said, we just have a reason behind our number now. When you don't have that, people are, well, how did you come up with this, pennies on the dollar offer, and if we can base it around that assessed value, it really gives us a foot to stand on with the seller, and it resonates with them and it makes sense. So we're still gonna try to get it for as low as we can, but we know that's kind of a baseline of where we need to be.
So are you still sort of going under the assessed value then?
Yeah, so I would say, the days of offering 20 cents on the dollar are long gone, at least for us. Maybe if you're still doing it and you're listening, hey, kudos to you, keep going. I mean, if it's working for you. But if the assessed value is, say, $20,000 and the market value is $100,000, I'm not going to send an offer for $20,000. I guess it varies. We're in probably the 45 to 60% range of market value. So, but what we're taking into assessed value into consideration. And in that example I gave, if you have a property that's worth market value of 35,000 and the assessed value is 20,000, I'm going to send an offer for around 21, which is, I don't know what the math is on that, but it's higher probably than 60%. Just because I've used that assessed value as an anchor, and I don't mind, could I get the property under contract for less? Maybe. But at the end of the day, after closing costs, realtor fees, I'm still going to make $10,000 on it. For me, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah. Curious, guys, how big is the team?
It's growing.
Is it mostly both you guys, or is there a VA? Is there
we have 2 VAs on our land side. Yeah. Okay. So we have one that deals strictly with launch control and the SMS.
Yeah.
Because that's a job in itself. And then another one on the dispo side that lists properties, does marketing packages and such. So they do a nice job.
So you guys are also texting as well then?
Yep.
A little bit, yeah. We do probably 20% is text. The other 80% is neutral letters.
Well, help us understand, since you guys are in there doing both, why are you keeping it at 20%? Is that going to outdo mailing, or do you think mail still gets you better quality leads? What are you guys learning, but having run both?
Yeah, we find that neutral letters works really well for our business. And we've talked to several land investors over, the past months, years. And I always tell people, if they're asking my opinion, do what fits your personality, your business. I mean, you can totally run a business that is 100% text, 100% cold call, 100% blind offers, right? If you never want to talk to anyone and you just want to send out offers. For us, neutral letters just works because we talk to every single seller and the leads that come in are warm. Would I up the text? I would probably up the neutral letter to 90% before I up the text to 30%, just because it works really well for us.
What's so funny is I swear, the last 5 guests on this show have sworn by mail. And for a while, it was everybody's leaving mail. And it's no, mail works. Mail works. Now, for you guys who are listening, I am not saying it works better or worse. And I think, yeah, I mean, Chris said it here. Anything works. So I said this all the time. It's everything works and everything doesn't work. So pick one and stick with it. See what works best for you, the way you want to run your business. And just because, Chris and Aaron here use those methods, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do, but it certainly works for you guys. And it's really interesting to hear that. So thanks for sharing a little bit about how you guys are going about it with launch control. Now, so you guys got this way where you can look at assess values and market values, and you're analyzing this. But you guys have made this a lot easier. You guys have something that you've built. Give us an understanding what that is.
Yeah, so about a year ago, Aaron and I finally said, okay, the strategy works. It works for us really well. How can we take this assess to market value strategy and do it for the entire country? And so we got into about a year ago to software development, and we started developing AI land deals, and that's deals with a Z. We literally launched last month, so we're brand new. But essentially, what it does is we took all 26 million parcels of land, give or take, and the assessor information for all of those parcels of land across the United States that has the county assessed values on each one. And then we use MLS data, Zillow data, Redfin data, and assigned comps for all of these parcels to define them a market value, using as well AI coupled with that to kind of merge those two things together. And so what ended up happening is there's logic behind our software that essentially shows you by a county level and a zip code level those margins. And it's based on a color coding system, green, yellow, and red. So you have a map of the US and the states that you want to work in, and it'll show you green, yellow, and red pins for every single county and zip code in the US. A green pin means that the majority of land parcels in that county have a market value significantly higher than the assessed value. A yellow pin is the majority of land parcels in that county have a market value slightly or a good amount higher than the assessed value. And a red pin signifies the assessed value has caught up to the market value, if you will. And so they're equal to, more or less. And our system, AI Land Deals, does that for the entire country, every county and zip code in the country.
So I'm basically coming into AI Land Deals. I can look and in a certain county. Now, do you break it down further in the county? Like, is it sort of heat mapped, or is it just by the county, or how granular does it get?
Yeah, so you essentially what it does, it takes the guesswork out of your market selection. So you as a user would pick the states you want to work in, either 3, 5, or 8 states. Once you have access and you've picked those states, the first screen when you click on that state is going to show you all the counties in that state and whether they're green, yellow, or red. If you then click on a county, a specific county, it'll show you all the zip codes within that county and whether each of those zip codes are green, yellow, or red.
Okay, so you're breaking them down by zip codes. Now, so like what happens if a county is like half red, half green then? Like, what do you show on this county level?
That's kind of the beauty about it is for the county level, and answer your question, is going to show whatever there's a majority of. So if 40% are green, 30% are yellow, and the remaining and 30% are red, it's going to be a green county. But when you click on the county and you get to the zip code level, it's going to do the same thing for each zip code. But the beauty is, even in red counties where the assessed has caught up to the market value, there are typically green or yellow zip codes within there. So if you're wanting to look at, a major metro that may be a red county, and instead of spending a ton of marketing dollars on that entire county, you can say, you know what, I'm just going to market to the green zip codes within this major metro or this whatever this red county is, and save a significant amount on your marketing dollars.
It just felt like we were throwing spaghetti against the wall some weeks, as far as marketing dollars. Like, where do we send? And we're just, hey, this is probably a good area. And now our ROI has been so much better with AI Land Deals because everything is targeted, and being able to go granular on a zip code level has helped that so much.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. You guys, so a lot of the comp data is coming from the MLS or Redfin or Zillow. So you guys gathering that. How often is that sort of updated in order to make sure this data is accurate then?
Yeah, great question. So it's updated monthly, as well as we have integrated AI within it as well. So there is some machine learning too, where it's getting better as it goes as well. But in terms of the MLS Zillow Redfin data, it's updating monthly so that in January, a county or a zip code can be green. In June or July or even the next month, depending on whatever that 6 month, the sell window is, it could change colors because things, the market values and whatnot change year to year, month to month, even sometimes.
Um, Help us understand the AI side of things. That's part of the company name there. I know a lot of people are like, okay, AI, like they have no idea what that means or how does that apply. How does that apply into what you guys are doing?
So I would say currently it applies in two ways. First off, taking raw data from counties where you typically only have, most land doesn't have a physical address, but it does have latitude, longitude. So taking raw data from the county and then coupling it so those zip codes and latitude, longitude on Redfin, Zillow, or MLS to try to find exactly where they are. Because when you're comping land, one of the biggest things is being exactly where that property is and looking at a radius around where that property is, right? As opposed to an entire county where different pockets within the county could be different comps very significantly. So AI is taking those latitude, longitudes and getting it really, really close to where that location is on Redfin, Zillow, and from the MLS data. That's number one. Number two is we're leveraging it to actually comp properties and do so with machine learning so that they see the logic that Aaron and I use on our daily basis of comping land, using that logic and machine learning now comping so that their comping eventually gets better as well. So it's twofold.
Can you help us understand what's your guys' comping process?
Sure. So first thing we do is we try to know exactly where the property is, like to the exact spot on, Redfin, for example, if you're going to comp on Redfin. Once you have that, we're then going to try to find the most like property that has sold within the past 6 months of that property, meaning same size, similar, whether specifically, I guess, for an infill lot. So if it's under an acre, we're trying to find a very similar property to the one that we're trying to comp and look at the sold data. If it's large acreage, like I would say 2+ acres, we're going to look at more of a price per acre model. And we'll do that in a 3-mile radius to start, a 5-mile radius, and then upwards of 15 to 20-mile radius from where the property is. And we'll use more of a price per acre model. If there are no sold comps, stage 2 is we're going to look at for sales. And with for sales, we're going to discount it typically 10 to 15% based on the listing price because most people aren't paying the exact sticker price. If there are none of those, stage 3 is going to be sold homes that have sold for like an infill lot, and then taking a percentage of the land based on the price of the home sold. And then stage 4 is going to be for sale for homes.
Amazing. How can people find AI land deals?
So go to our website, www.ailanddeals.com. You can book a demo with Aaron or I. We can spend 45 minutes, an hour just demoing the software for you. ailanddeals.com. You can also email us info@ailanddeals.com as well. And we'd love to chat and meet you and introduce ourselves and talk further.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for putting together something like this. A unique way to look at data and how you guys are chopping up data there and making it a better ROI. Especially, it always starts. Everybody always says it starts with the data that you get. So, really important, obviously, in this space. Anything else I've missed here, guys?
I would just say, the biggest thing when we started was figuring out, market selection, right? It was the most cumbersome. It took the most time. You really didn't know if it would work. And there really wasn't a great solution for it. So our goal in this was to provide a solution for other land investors like ourselves so that they can cut out some of that time, cut out a lot of that wasted money, and get right to, doing this business, doing it successfully. And we hope that this brings that power to a lot of land investors out there. And we hope people are super successful because the business works. It really does. It's an amazing business. And especially when you have great platforms like Pebble to use as your CRM, it's a win-win.
Awesome.
Well, we just want it to be a tool in everybody's tool belt, right? Like everybody has to have land ID. I couldn't do this job without land ID and a mapping system. And we want that, AI land deals to be that other tool that why aren't you using it? It's a no-brainer. Like you have to be using it. So
yeah.
Thank you, Jesse.
No, appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing some of the stuff you guys are working on. I know this is sort of we did cover a little bit of a product here as well with what you guys are working on. So I do want to be fully transparent about that to the audience. But I thought that you guys are doing something really unique here and cool. So I wanted to make sure you guys get a chance to share that. So anyways, if you guys want to also, hop on a call with Chris or Aaron, you guys know where to find them. Thanks again for sharing everything here, guys.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Take care. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening and catch you on our next episode.